By 1976, the jazz rock boom had reverberated throughout Spain, with a flurry of new talent propping up like Iceberg, Campania Electrodharma, Dolores, Secta Sonica, and this next band, perhaps the most distinct of them all, Música Urbana, who had a very percussive flamenco twist on the style. And from their self-titled debut album, the track Agost. Bit of kind of plucking, misty mix of cymbal and various stringed instruments. Bit of like smoldering electric guitar and acoustic Spanish. Okay, I'm hearing some really smoldering tone, like fuzzy. That moment right there is like one of the most distinctive passages, like on any of these albums. That rhythmic component that comes together, like, but there's that big, like, fast roll of the snare, and then that like wooden kind of like hand percussion, kind of like comes up and just starts to rattle and. So much like staccato playing notes, arpeggios, just dazzling, interlocking. Right off the bat, you can tell this band had something really distinctive going. It's like they were drawing much more upon their own regional folk music. As opposed to some of their compatriots in like the jazz rock realm, who were much more obviously like Iceberg. You can tell were heavily influenced by Return to Forever. But this I can't trace. This could somewhat be likened to the music that Chick Corea was just starting to make, like on his solo albums around this time, but. This is much more steeped in like the Spanish tradition and much more, you could say much more authentic in that regard. And now we've gone a much different direction here. We've got some, I forgot about this little passage. Changing so fast that the moment I call it, it's gone. What is that little dancing, kind of like tap dancing percussion I'm hearing? We got a lot of instrumentalists, so I'm going to have to pick through. That, I guess, is the castanet, played by Aurora Amargós, and that perhaps is like the most distinctive sound heard on it. It's what's really setting this apart from practically anyone else from this time period. And now we're hearing where those kind of slow, dirgy, smoldering guitar tones are starting to come down. Well, kind of sounding kind of dirgy in those really low notes. Guitar is played by. I'll get back to that in a minute. Okay, these credits are sometimes so poorly laid out. Electric guitar, the Les Paul, is played by Lluís Cabanach. Yes, he was one of the members in the band who had been part of Makina, like in early '70s. Kind of like, I think they were like kind of like a psychedelic hard rock band. Yeah. You're just kind of like smoldering there, and we've also got that like Spanish guitar interlocking with it, interweaving. And that bass note putting in these odd accents and everything. The guitar's just kind of adding little filigree spots in, just... Oh, and that piano, too. I'm amazed. I'm wondering how they came up with this passage, because it's got a certain structure to it, and yet it's also so discombobulated and like free form in terms of the various input that's going into it. It's like basically held together by like two instruments, and then everyone else is just kind of randomly filling it in. Yeah, that dun 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 dun, like there's that kind of melody there that holds it together, and then there's that castanet that gives it that really distinct sound. You know, whenever I think of this song, I always that passage just immediately comes to mind. And I guess I'm just realizing now just how kind of almost loose and random the rest of the passages are between each repetition of that. Then we've got kind of a slightly, well, groovin type structure driven by that bass line. I noticed that, I guess, like mutedness is another like reoccurring theme in this. Lots of little filigree that's kind of low volume. Okay, that is the obviously the Fender Rhodes of Joan Albert Amargós, who had been in. Let's see. After this, he would do an album with Factoria Musical, and had been in, well, a lot of things. Oh, he was on the 1977 Feliu y Joan Albert album. Yeah, Feliu Gasol. Yeah, that was Gasol. That was a twin guitarists album. Oh, that was I think that was actually like a teacher and a student. Yeah, one seasoned guitarist and like a really young protege, I think. He's had a lot of appearances. Yeah, one of the more accredited musicians. Oh, he was in Jarka. Yeah, 1971 album. Orthodoxia, yeah. I think that band did a couple of albums, 2 albums, yeah. Good early 70s jazz rock band from Spain. Before there were some good Spanish rock and jazz rock and folk rock in the early 70s in Spain. But after Franco died, the Spanish scene just exploded, like 75, 76, and wow, this is one of the tightest parts of the song. Boom, boom, boom. 7/8. I forgot to say, Joan Albert Amargós, he plays a Steinway piano, a Fender Rhodes electric piano, a Moog synthesizer, a clavinet, violins, Logan keyboard, and he also plays several woodwinds and brass. He plays trombone, flute, clarinet, and soprano sax. Not necessarily all on this track, though. We got two guys on keyboard. Actually, who we might be hearing, who I may even point out in this section, may actually be Lucky Guri. He plays synthesizer, Moog, and both a Steinway and a Fender piano. Well, no, I think we're hearing Amargós because it says, because he's credited with Fender electric piano, whereas Guri's only credited with piano. Oh, interestingly, Lucky Guri had also been in Barcelona Traction. Yeah, they put out an album in '75, kind of a like, I think like salsa fusion. And the drummer is giving us this kind of like, he's giving us like this side tap and this matted, kind of like alternating between, yeah. It's kind of like he's tapping the side of a tom with one stick and then putting his fist down on the snare maybe with like a towel on top of it or something. Oh, and hear that really faint but fluid guitar, that legato guitar here. Yeah, that's the Les Paul of Lluís Cabanach. Oh yeah, the drummer here is Salvador Font, who had also been in Makina and would appear in it says Crack, but not the Crack that I was thinking of. Not the 1979 Crack. Hear that wheezy sound? Hear the way it's just kind of like enveloping really slow. Well, I can't think of many single notes I've heard sustained for that long on a Moog. Fading into kind of like a misty shapelessness, and then reinstituting more of a flamenco element. This has been through so many passages. It's definitely been quite random. I mean, but we've had enough structure here and there, and enough density and little parts going on to make it entertaining. Hearing kind of like a chamber vibe here, almost like a Hoover vibe, only with the addition of castanet. A lot of the videos I've been making lately, I've noticed that kind of controlled selective cymbal mist has been a reoccurring theme, like atmospheric element. I'm wondering, did that become like a lost art at some point? Like giving sort of a misty feel by like just having this echoey, sustained cymbal. Like in the quieter, more rhythmless passages. Little tinkly sounds, little sound effects. Oh, we're about to hear some that smoldering guitar again. I just heard a little trebly electronic sound. I think we're about to get that distinct the earworm of the piece one more time. I hear that guitar just scaling up. How many times do you think they had to practice to nail it right? Or was there ever like one correct way for them all to be playing this for each? Was there ever like one correct way for each of them to be filling this in, filling out this? Or was it different every single time they played it? And that was Agost by Música Urbana from their 1976 self-titled album, their first of two, yes. One of Spain's finest and most distinctive jazz rock acts of the late 1970s. And that's saying a lot, considering, that's saying quite a bit, considering just how thriving the Spanish scene was during the late 1970s, yes. Where musicians were sprouting up everywhere in the newly liberated country, no longer under the old World War II era shackles of Franco. And would go on to become a very thriving musical nation over the next decade. Yeah, with several big major upheavals in the music scene. 1976 would be a great year for Spain with lots of great, debuts and landmark albums. And 1978 would be another banner year. 79 another strong year, and 1983 would be another strong year too. Going from like the jazz rock bands to the symphonic bands. Some of them influenced by the Italian scene, and then onward to like a whole upsurge in like new romantic synth pop bands, like in the early 1980s. Yeah. For more rubies and sapphires from Música Urbana, see the directory of Spanish albums linked in the description below for red hot tracks and purples from this album and all the other like jazz rock bands from Spain that I've mentioned, as well as bands across the musical spectrum from like symphonic rock, hard rock, folk rock, singer-songwriter, pop, electronic, and new wave. And as well as Spanish acts, there's also Portuguese acts, because it's actually a directory for the entire Iberian Peninsula. So about 1/5 of it, you could say, is Portuguese as well, from the 70s and 80s. Yeah. Like and subscribe and follow me on social media, and leave a comment if there are any observations you have about the track that we just heard, the layers, the nuances, the interplay, the harmonics, the way that certain instruments converged and interlocked, and just the filigree and just the light little details and just the beauty of it all, the abstract details and such. And until next time, this is Zaragon, the world's most ear-traveled trimaximalist, signing off.